Welcome back to Reaching Up. This is Nigel here. I have with me a guest today who has actually earned a little over 250,000 US dollars in scholarship. Her name is Roy Kirby
Straker.
Straker. Good day, Miss Roy. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
It's so good to have you here on the show. Would you tell me a little bit as who is Roy and where are you from?
Okay, it's good to be on your show as well. I am from St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean, and I started my international student journey in the US in the early 90s. Now you know my age.
That's okay.
Yes,
That's
I
okay.
am a mom, I'm a student, I'm a wife, and so I'm trying to do it all at once.
So good. So here we hear you're an international student, a mom, a wife, a student, and you've made your life through all of this. So how did you go about finding funding? You've actually amassed over $250,000 in scholarships. So how did you go about it? What were some of the ways that you went around looking for monies for your education?
Okay. Well, I began in the days before the internet was easily accessible.
Okay.
So I started, when I had to just go up to the local training office in my country and find out what scholarships were being offered. I would read magazines that had to do with the environmental field, which is what I was interested in, still am back then. And I would look to see who wrote the articles and see if they had a bio, where did they study. I would go up to the library and look at books that had to do with universities abroad. And one of the most important things I did was talk to people who had already obtained funding. And I found out what they did, where they got this money from. Later on, when the internet came in and was very popular and more easily accessible, I used the internet. And on the internet, I looked at websites for the schools I wanted to go to,
Attend.
which
Okay.
schools I wanted to attend. I looked at professional organizations in my field of study.
Okay.
I even contacted faculty in programs in which I wanted to study.
Okay.
So some of
So
those
you
things.
created your own little scheme as to look, I have to go after this funding. I needed to pursue education,
Absolutely.
so I'm gonna make my own path, which is
That's
good.
right.
Actually, they always say there's a method to any madness, so that was a workable method because
Yes.
it worked out for you.
It worked
There are a
out
lot of
for me.
people who would have gone another route, and then when they reach one wall or thereabout, they would have closed down. Now, if I were to be talking to someone in East Africa, someone in China, someone in India, someone in Rwanda who wants to know, okay, what are some of the things I can do to position myself as a candidate who is worthy of somebody's funding? What would you say?
I would say first decide what you want to do. Decide what's your ultimate goal. And then try to come up with some boundaries first. You don't have to stay in those boundaries. You can step out later just so you can start looking. And I would say first, if you want to study in a specific geographic area, start looking at those schools. If you want to study in a specific field, just start going into search engines online. And then you look for what are the requirements, what is required of you to get this funding.
Okay.
And then make sure you start developing yourself to meet those requirements.
So this whole myth, this whole theory or this whole adage that we hear, there are millions of dollars in scholarship money, it actually has some merit to it. Tell me a little bit.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much is out there, but I do think that there's funding available. One of the sources I forgot to tell you about too is international funding agencies.
International funding
Yes,
agencies.
that fund developing countries, and some of them work with the government in your country to find out what is needed in terms of development. So I think there is a way to do it, and in this age of social
Media.
media It's so easy to
Yeah.
ask people. That's one of the things I didn't do as much, and I
Okay.
learned over the years. Talk to people and build networks.
Okay.
And so surround yourself with people who have been successful, and just start looking. But one of the most important things I will tell people out there is you need to dedicate a lot of time to it.
Yeah.
And when you meet a roadblock, do not shut down, do not stop. It's out there. Just
Okay.
keep looking, because I had to look a lot before I got through.
So, have you ever meet any roadblocks along your journey as you try to find scholarships for your education?
Sure.
Have you ever gotten denial letters? What are ways that you've dealt with that?
Yeah. I've gotten one or two denial letters, but one of the things I did is that I made sure that I looked carefully and spent a lot of time, so that when I applied, I knew I would have been highly competitive. So I didn't want to apply just many places and do substandard work and so on. I spent a lot of time in the planning process.
So planning seems to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Reaching Up. I'm here talking with a young lady who has actually gotten $250,000 in scholarship. And today she's talking with us, and we're going into our second segment where we're going to talk a little about planning to study abroad. How do you go through a plan? What do you put in place? Where do you look? And where can you start? I'm here with Roy. Roy, could you let us know, what are some of the places you can look if we wanted to start? Let's talk about a plan. Let's build a plan. Let's put it around our minds now. What would go into putting a plan together?
Okay, well, let me give you from my own example.
Okay.
So I wanted to study in the field of environment, in the environmental field.
Okay.
And I wanted to study environmental management.
Okay.
But at the time, I couldn't find a scholarship that funded an environmental, degree.
Okay.
So I found a scholarship that was being advertised over the radio at home, and it was in ecotourism.
Okay.
I said, well, I think there's a link somewhere. So sometimes you need to link what you want to do with what's available.
Okay.
And I said, well, this could be a stepping stone to my ultimate goal.
Okay.
So I applied for that scholarship, and I was successful. Then it was only a 2-year scholarship, but I knew that my ultimate goal, at least one phase in this goal, was a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
So I said, well, that would be 2 years off a bachelor's degree. I could transfer credits.
Okay.
So as soon as I got that scholarship, I started looking for funding to finish the other 2 years.
Okay.
So I searched. I found out that OAS used to fund. I don't know if they do it still.
Yeah, they still do.
Okay,
Actually, they're a very big funder.
the final 2 years of undergrad. They don't fund the first 2 years, at least not back then. And so I said, oh, that's the one I'll do. Remember, this was before internet too, right? So I did that, and after that, I knew that I wanted to do a master's degree, and I had spoken to other people who had done masters. I said, where did you get your funding? They said, the school funded me. I said, really?
Okay.
And so I found a school I wanted to attend for my master's, and I applied there. And by then I was kind of a veteran, so I knew when it was time for my PhD, I applied to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's so good that you went through this. This sounds like a science you put together. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, because you know something very key. In putting your application together, you would have had to present yourself as someone. Name 2 things that you can say to somebody right now looking to acquire a scholarship. What 2 things can they work on building for themselves a strong profile?
Okay. I would say definitely volunteer in your field. Volunteer, join professional organizations in your field.
Okay.
And also get involved with community groups
Okay.
and work on projects.
Great.
So funders want to see that you could start something from planning stages right through to implementation.
Okay.
They want to know that you could finish your degree. They
Okay.
don't want to waste their money. So show them that you can plan something, start it, even acquire funds to run it, and finish it.
Okay.
So I think those two things would be good. Another thing, always check the requirements for where you want to attend
Yeah.
and start working on those. Give yourself time to work on them. For example, I
Okay.
spent a lot of time studying for the graduate record exam when I was doing my graduate degree.
Okay.
There are some schools that don't require it. If you
Yeah.
figure you don't want to do that, then look for those schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there, just make sure that you're going to fit the requirements because universities and funding agencies are looking for fit.
Okay. But we also learned that there are a lot of people who miss funding because they apply to programs that they really are not qualified for.
Yeah,
How
don't
do you
do
help
that.
someone
Don't do
who just applied for every scholarship that they see? What are some of your suggestions to such a person?
My suggestions, like I said earlier, find out what you want to do, what are the requirements, and what you have already to meet those requirements. And if there's enough time, make sure you develop yourself to meet those requirements. If it's not something that's doable, because it's not always realistic, let's say they want a bachelor's degree already or an associate's in something else and that's not realistic for you, look for a program that fits you with what you have already and how you can market yourself to say, well, you know, I'm the perfect person for this scholarship.
Basically, you're saying that you need to build for yourself a strong enough profile that meets the criteria or the eligibility requirements of the scholarship.
Yes, definitely. And another thing is that you should try to think about ways in which you can enrich the program in which you're trying to enter. Because they're also looking for people who can expand their programs, who can bring diversity, and who could enrich the program. So don't always think about what you can get from a program,
Okay.
but what you can give.
So it
And
must
make
be
sure
a trade, a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely.
So without the ability to have a reciprocating relationship, it's going to be difficult.
I think so. You need to show that you are going to bring something to the table when you're coming.
So being a strong candidate means making and putting together an outstanding application, basically.
I think so.
So
No
good.
mistakes.